Albania's last king was Zogul, who was famous for beefing and had reportedly survived 55 assassination attempts during his 11-year rule. His rule came to an end when Mussolini invaded Albania in April 1939, and following World War II, he never returned to Albania, with the country instead becoming a ruthless communist dictatorship. Andorra is currently co-ruled by the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and the Bishop of Urgell, Joan-Eric Viver y Sicilia. Both men have rule over the country and get an equal say on what goes on. Pretty straightforward. King Leo V was the last Armenian king and ruled for 7 months. His rule came to an end when the Mamluks invaded, took him and his family prisoner for 5 years in Cairo until he was eventually ransomed and ended up in Spain and died in Paris in 1393. Charles I, or Karl I, ruled Austria-Hungary for 2 years from 1916 to 1918. He lost his throne mostly as a result of losing World War I, but that didn't stop him from trying to reclaim the throne of Hungary 2 more times in 1921. It's okay, bro, just let it go next time. Medigulu Khan Javanshir was the last Khan of the Karabakh Khanate, ruling the country for 16 years. His rule came to an end when the Persians lost a war to the Russians and he fled to Iran. He later went back to Karabakh and lived there until he died, receiving a state pension from the Russian government. Belarus has never had a monarch in its history and only received full recognized independence in 1991. The current king of Belgium is Philippe, who has ruled Belgium since the 21st of July 2013. Philippe found it hard to make friends in school and enjoys painting, reading, and jogging. Yeah, pretty regular dude, to be honest. Bosnia's last king, Stephen II, was king for 2 years before the Ottomans invaded the territory and he decided to hide, until a local man snitched on him for money. He was subsequently captured and beheaded in front of Sultan Mehmed II. Bulgaria's last king, Simeon II, ruled for 3 years until a Soviet-backed coup kicked him out of the country when he was just 6 years old. Bulgaria subsequently became a communist dictatorship for the next 45 years. Simeon is still alive today, however, and he lives in Bulgaria. Croatia's last king, Peter Snačić, was the last native Croatian king, ruling for roughly 4 years before he was killed in battle fighting King Koloman of Hungary. A personal union with Hungary followed, which lasted for over 800 years. Depending on who you ask, Cyprus's last Byzantine king was Isaac Komnenos, who ruled Cyprus for 6 years before being taken prisoner by the English, released, and then poisoned to death. The last monarch of the Kingdom of Cyprus was Queen Catherine Kounaro, who ruled for almost 15 years, although she eventually settled back in Venice and had a few plays written about her life. Czechia's last native king, George of Podobrady, ruled for 13 years, was very diplomatic, and tried to preserve peace and tolerance between the Hussites and Catholics during a time of great religious tension. He also came up with the idea of European unity, and has actually been cited as the first father of the EU, being about 500 years too early though. Frederick X is the current king of Denmark, having been on the throne since January last year. He's a big fan of sports, loves his marathons, and used to be called the Party Prince in his younger days. Just another regular dude. Estonia has never had a native monarch in its history. Finland never had an independent native monarchy, instead being ruled by Sweden and Russia. But it had a monarch elected for it in 1918, but they never stepped foot in the country and renounced their throne after only 2 months. France is a bit of a weird one because Louis XVI got guillotined during the French Revolution, and he ruled for roughly 18 years prior to this. However, after the revolution, French monarchs continued to appear for another 80 years or so. The last self-declared monarch or emperor was Napoleon III, who was Napoleon Bonaparte's nephew, and ruled France for 17 years until he lost the Franco-Prussian War and was captured and then eventually fled to London. George XII was the last king of a Georgian state, ruling for a little under 2 years. In effect, he was a Russian puppet. George was quite overweight and was surrounded on all sides by stronger empires, including the Russian, the Ottoman, and the Persians. There were attempts made to ally with Napoleon's France, but this never materialized into anything. After he died in 1800, the kingdom was quickly annexed by Russia. Germany's last king, or Kaiser, Wilhelm II, was ruler of Germany and Prussia for 30 years. Wilhelm may have actually suffered mild brain damage as a result of an impaired birth, and he subsequently became an erratic, ambitious leader that antagonized the international community. He dismissed Bismarck as chancellor and went on to lose World War I and subsequently abdicated, living in exile in the Netherlands for the rest of his life. Greece's last king, Constantine II, ruled officially for 9 years. He was an accomplished athlete as well, winning a gold medal at the 1960 Olympics. However, during his reign, he spent only 3 years in the country as a right-wing military dictatorship forced him into exile. The dictatorship, or junta, held a referendum to abolish the monarchy, which passed with 78% support. After the junta fell, a second referendum was held, this time under democratic conditions, and once again, the monarchy was abolished, with 69% voting in favour of a republic. The last king of Austria-Hungary was Charles I. The last native Hungarian king to rule the territories of the Old Kingdom of Hungary was Louis II, who ruled for just over a decade. He was only 20 when he died in the Battle of Monarch by falling off his horse and drowning in a stream while retreating from the Ottoman army. His death marked a major turning point as most of Hungary soon fell under Ottoman occupation. As an independent country, Iceland has never had a monarch, but before its independence it was ruled by King Christian X of Denmark. The most commonly accepted last Irish High King was that of Ruaidhri Ua Conchobar, or Rory O'Connor, who ruled Ireland but not as a united state for roughly 32 years. With the Anglo-Norman invasion happening around the same time, the island fell and remained under English subjugation for over 700 years. Italy's last king, Umberto II, ruled for just over a month. Following Italy's defeat in World War II, the monarchy had become increasingly unpopular. A national referendum had sealed its fate, though it was surprisingly close, with 54% voting for a republic and 46% in favour of keeping the monarchy. Umberto himself was a subject of intrigue. He was rumoured to be gay, allegedly blackmailed by Mussolini, and even designed his wife's wedding dress. After abdicating, he lived in exile in Portugal for the remaining 37 years of his life.